Good morning.
Good morning.
Student body, the faculty, and the veterans. Who didn't I mention? Before going into the session, I'd like to introduce my wife. She's sitting here in my wheelchair. Milwaukie, Sandoval. How many of you sabe Espanol Sandoval? My last name is sort of tricky for me. Sandoval is a Spanish name. I got it from my father, but I don't know where he got his. So I'm honored to be here at this classroom 106. And again, this is my second visit here in the number of years. I'm very honored to present myself as a Navajo code talker that served in World War II, 1942 to 1946. All of it, those years were overseas in South Pacific against the Japanese aggression. I imagine you students have heard about the Wind Talker, and the rest of you have seen it. How many of you have seen that? Well, all I can say is it's a movie. Nicolas Cage movie. Before I get into my session, that Wind Talker, I give credit. It made a renown around the world, over the world, in the world of the Navajo code talkers, such as me. For 60-some years, the Navajo code has never been exposed to the world, has never been exposed to the public in the United States, even to my own Navajo people. That's how secret it was. It was declassified in 1968 after 23 years under secrecy by the War Department. That's why the Navajo code talkers were never recognized until about 2, 3, 4 years ago. You have authors that come around, make books. That's on individual basis, individual Navajo code talk being interviewed. But what I'm saying comes from me, deep inside of me. It's an experience that has the negative and the positive side for me. There are times when I was entering the Marine Corps, I felt that I needed to do duty. I was freshly out of high school back in New Mexico. And I'd like to give a brief background of my personal history, very brief. My mother and father were very kind. They encouraged education because they only had 5th grade, my mother and father. And so my siblings and I were encouraged to continue education, wherever we can get it. So I went to a Christian-oriented school, and there, but before that, let me say this. We lived as a family, very simple. I was born in the Hokan. It's a shape that the Navajos live in back in those days. The nearest town was was about 100 miles away. And like I said, I was born in the Hokan. Had dirt floor, slept on a sheepskin or goat skin on the floor. Didn't have any inner spring mattress then. So I had a simple beginning as a Navajo boy. And then my grandfather used to get me up very early. Come on, grandson, you're going with me. I was about 3 or 4 years old then. And he used to take me across the wash where he had his sweat house. And he was a medicine man. And he'd get me to go, and I'd look at my father, look at my mother. No, you go with Grandpa. I wanted to sleep a little longer, but it was too early for Grandpa. So we go across down by the wash. He had a well there, and his structure of a sweat house there. He'd sing a song, he'd say his prayers, and he'd tell me the stories of what a Navajo life is, the cultural, the traditional way of living. I didn't want to listen to him. That's for you, Grandpa, not for me. Today I regret it. But some of them I can recall as to what kind of grandfather he was. He was a disciplinarian. You don't do this, you do this. That's the way I was raised as a child. From there, I went on to school, enrolled in the school that I mentioned. And there, again, I ran into discipline. So all the way through high school, after I graduated, the war was going on. I remember December 7, 1941, while I was in high school. That's when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, 1941. After finishing high school, I decided to go and enlist the Marine Corps because I had an opportunity out of the state, away from my home, where I had brief employment in the defense plant. There was a contingent of Navy base and a contingent of Navajo, U.S. Marine boys there. I got acquainted with them. After work, I played with the Marines, talked, and they influenced me to join the Marine Corps. So I come home and joined the Marine Corps. There, first I wanted to check my selective service number, see when I come home, Uncle Sam wants me, pointing at me like that. Oh, I had about 2 or 3 months before I was drafted. I didn't want to be drafted. I wanted to go in voluntary basis, so I wanted to enlist. Well, I left the social selective service office. Before I left, I was at the door and said, Sam, come on back. We want to ask you one question. And so I came back and sat down with them. They asked me, what nationality are you? I said, I'm a Navajo, full-blooded Indian. Okay, sit down. And they gave me a very brief message, information. The United States Marine Corps is recruiting young Navajo boys, 17 on up, with a grade of 10 to speak English fluently and to speak Navajo fluently. Said, I qualify, except for my physical. Sign me up. The recruiters are right there. So I signed up then. One thing I can say, I went through high school at this mission school, that is boarding school. They said, one word of Navajo at this school, you suffer the consequences. But we used to sneak away and talk Navajo. I never got caught. And this kind of message brings other schools throughout the Navajo reservation. It's a big reservation. Boarding school, run under the federal government, Indian, Christian schools, public schools, and public schools, and all the schools on the reservation. They tell me they were not supposed to speak Navajo. Why did I join? Now they want Navajos. The government school didn't want us to speak Navajo either in other schools. And again, I might say that day that I enlisted, I did not know what I was getting into. And I went all the way through boot camp in San Diego, California. Didn't know. I was in the Marine Corps. That's it. Didn't tell me the information that I got. When I finished the boot camp, it sent me to advanced training in Camp Pendleton, Oceanside. There, I found out what it was all about. There was about 29 others ahead of me, Navajos, a bunch of them in their own barracks. I went in with 59 others, including me, 60 Navajo boys. And we were full platoon by Navajos in San Diego. So I found out at Camp Pendleton that there was a code school using the Navajo language. Let me remind you, this Navajo language is not the everyday language. Like if I want to speak to my wife Navajo, it's entirely different. Words are the same, but it has different meaning. We had to develop our own code, and it was quite a task. The code itself does not have military terminology. Like ship, we only have one word for. In everyday Navajo language, one word for ship. Same with airplane, one word. But how are we going to do it? How are we going to create a code that the Japanese wouldn't break? The Japanese military forces decoded every military message. That means Morse code, radio, all that. And the Marine Corps was up against it. And then the Japanese even broke every military message that was sent in international code. So we have to go some way. where they cannot break our message in combat. We finally did it. How did we do it? Our thoughts go back to the Hogan level, where I was born, where we talk Navajo. So what do we see? On the floor, on the ground, anywhere. All of us see it. Something we're familiar with, daily lives. So A, alphabet A, we said we'll use ant. You see it every day. Ant in Navajo will achieve, because we don't have the 26 alphabet. And then we go down the line. B, in communication you say baker, in voice language. B, we don't have it. So we're familiar with our mountains out there surrounding us. What do we see quite often? Bear. So we said, let's use bear for a letter, alphabet A, B, I mean. Shush. That's the way we went down the 26 alphabet. Birds we use like ships, and that's it. We use the birds, the fowls of the air. That's for airplane. For the seas, the ocean, the ships, we use the fish, different kind of fish, all kinds. We name them ourselves. Then military equipment, we don't have a word for bomb in everyday language Navajo. So we wrote down bomb. Bomb is for eggs. Eggs. We have that in Navajo language. Now for hand grenade, what does it look like?
Pineapple.
We use potato in Navajo. To give you a little story, Air Force was up there in combat out in the South Pacific Islands. They had a crew. Happened to be one Navajo in the crew. And the pilot asked him, what are those guys saying down there? They were flying over combat zone. So I don't know. They're talking Navajo, but I don't understand it. And the pilot asked him again, are you sure? No. Sounds to me like they're having breakfast down there in combat, talking about bombs and eggs. Of course, they didn't have French fries then. So these are some of how complicated that code is. Not only that, we were not too sure about the 26 alphabet in Navajo. So we added 2 more to each alphabet. So we had 63 Navajo alphabet compared to 26 in English. We interchanged them in the message. In our message, it's a voice message only. We use field radio and telephone, field telephone, in the jungles, in the front lines, wherever we are. So at nights, we cannot use those equipment. So they use me and other code talkers to run a message. Maybe the commander asks, give me a message. Here, Sam. Take it back to the headquarters. That means the rear echelon. We're just set up. We're up there, in there, at night. Of course, the flares are up. You can see daylight. So there was a guy that always hangs around with me, a non-Navajo. He was blonde-headed, blue eyes, real light complected, good friend of mine. He's from Brooklyn, the same outfit that I was. He had a 45 on him. That's a pistol. And I carried my rifle. And he'd hang around with me. Pretty soon I forgot about him. One night I was asked to carry the message back to the rear. And he went along. And of course it was jungle and swamp, roots, bushes. And he'd fall. He'd run into trees. And I had more problem with him than the Japanese. So a couple of days later, I asked my commanding officer if he could, assign me another man. 2 days later, I had another one. No problem after that. So you see, these are combat situations that I run into. About 3 weeks ago, my wife and I and some other co-talkers went to Guam. That's in the Mariana Islands. I was stationed there. That's where I landed in the first wave as a co-talker. And there were 6 of us that went back to different outfits. And we'll have a documentary coming out. And I mentioned Wind Talker before. There is only a brief shot of that real Navajo co-talker. I'm not in it. The other 2 Indians, one's a Navajo that was in the Air Force. The other one is a Canadian Indian, Adam Beach. So you take that movie for what it's worth individually. But one thing I can say about MGM and Wind Talker, that it exposed throughout the world there are such animals like me, Navajo co-talker. Today you see it in different languages throughout the world. But this documentary we're coming up with, it's going to be worldwide too. And they'll be the real co-talkers then. It's a message about ourselves. It will be distributed among schools, wherever they need, universities, college, high school as such. It'll take about 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years before it'll come out. Educational purpose, what the co-talk is all about. From home to war, back to home. And then I give credit to MGM on that. We have a Navajo Co-Talkers Association that was formed in 1974. We meet every month. And MGM, we negotiated for $100,000. We wanted $1 million, but they wouldn't give it to us. That $1 million, they can make it like that as a movie. We got $100,000. What do we do with it? We put it in education, scholarship. That's it. I don't have 1 penny in my pocket. These are some activities we carry out. Let me say there's about 418 Navajos in the United States Marine Corps as a co-talkers. Out of that, I'd say about 125 to 135 have really been in it. They were there in the thick of it. And I forgot about that man there that always hung around me. It was way late in the war when I found out what he was doing. He was guarding me. He was ordered as my guard. Each code talker up there. I didn't know it till years later. In the event that Sam gets captured, he's right there. He's got his sidearm right there. There goes Sam. Lucky he didn't use it. I'm here now. There's none of them, the code talkers, was ever captured by the enemy. 13 of them got killed in action out in the war and the seas, the jungles and the islands. So today, I'm honored again to be with you students, faculty, and visitors of every branch. And then there's a story after the war, post-war. But before that, let me get into the islands I've been on. I've been in Guadalcanal, Bougainville, north of, and Guam, and Palaloo, and Okinawa. 5 combats. And I spent almost 4 years overseas, never went home. Today you're here in Iraq War. 9 months, I'm home. Wish it was then. On Okinawa, when I was there, the word came over the radio in the Navajo code, and I received it, that the Japanese have surrendered. August 14, 1945. So what do? The commanding officer comes around and says, the war is over. You guys be ready. In a couple of days, we're moving out. We're going home. Hey, we celebrate as code talkers. No, 2 days later, got aboard ship, briefed in. You Marines, all of us, are going to China. So I took a slow boat to China. I did occupation day there for about 4 months. That's for after 4 months, then I was ready to go home. During close to Christmas, December 1945, the commanding officer called me in his office before we left China back to the United States. Sam, he says, here's a piece of paper. Here's my pen. Right on the dotted line. I looked at it. I was signing up for 4 more years. No, officer, you're going to have it back. I'm going home. Good thing I know how to read. Otherwise, I'd have been in there. These are some of the things that my own experience. You have a lot of books out on code talkers. Again, I say there's only one individual author that interviews just 1 or 2 contact with him. Each code talker has a different story, what they've been through. And this is what is coming out of me. Of course, I don't talk about the psychological effect on me. I'm retired from my job. Let me get this later. Disabled veteran, 100%. Finally got it a couple of years ago. Why did I go to war? I wanted to go. At 18 years of age, out of high school, I wanted to register to vote or whatever freedom I might have. No, you're an Indian. Then 4 years, fought for the United States government. We were non-citizens of the United States, county level, city level, state level, and all the way to federal as a Navajo Indian. After the war, after discharge, we had to fight for it, for our rights, for our liberty, freedom. Lobby all the way through all branches of government in the United States. Finally got it in 1950s. Today, I enjoy each one of you, what you enjoy. The liberties, the freedoms I have. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech. That's why I'm talking. And decoding of the code, it's open. That's why I'm speaking about my duties. So today I enjoy every one of freedom that I have. That's what I went to war for. Not only that, above that, for the natives of each island, we liberated them. And to make it more encouraging, enjoyment for me at my life, age of my life, back in Guam, beautiful. It wasn't like what it used to be. I even went where I landed. Way different. All kinds. People are very, very, very welcome over there too, like you are here too. There's all kind of nationality here, as I'm looking at you. We all enjoy. Together, we live for that freedom. They say freedom is not free. It was very true for me. I sacrificed my life for it. Here I am today. And I spent my 82nd birthday on Guam when I was there with my wife and I. It's a wonderful feeling that we can travel. I've been here before. This is my second time. So I'm telling the people that I have returned to Milwaukie. Who said that? General MacArthur, to Philippines. But this is here though. And again, I like to say, I'm very, it gives me a lot of courage, ego, to continue to live, hopefully to live another 100 years. These are some egos that I go throughout the country, talking to universities, colleges, military institutions, get invited. Of course, they pay for them invitation. Again, I thank you all for your listening ears, both of them. Not going out this way, but going in both ways. So, again, I'm honored to be here. And maybe a few more years I'll be back again. Thank you for your attendance today.
Samuel, when you returned to this country after your war experience, did you return to the reservation? And if you did, what was the reception like? How well were you received, or were the people even aware of your accomplishments?
I understand now. Sir, you know, when you're that long away from your reservation, from your friends, from your Navajo parents, relatives, whoever is on the reservation, it is kind of hard to readjust. Takes quite a bit of time to get back in harmony with my own people. I didn't mention that part, but that part, there's no job, no livestock, what I used to have. The government took it all. My father and their mother and my parents didn't come on homecoming and from in San Diego. They weren't there. But all other nationalities would celebrate, except us. It was so secret, I guess. But that makes it a little harder returning to your home. Am I going to receive that same reception or not? So what I did is the first fall after returning in January, first fall session, and I entered the college to earn. So I went to upper schools, colleges, went into profession. First as an engineer, civil engineer. For 13 years I worked at. And then the Navajo tribe wanted me. Said, Sam, we need you. So I entered in social service, which I didn't know anything about. And programming on substance abuse, alcohol and drugs. So I went to University of Utah in Salt Lake City. So I changed my major to another profession. And that's my thanks to U.S. government. And I have to pay for it.
Thank you.
It takes quite a bit of dressing, but here's the point. As Navajos, we have medicine men that practice the bringing you back in harmony with the culture and tradition of the Navajo. That's where I got mine. Back on my feet with my people. 3-day ceremony.
Were you sworn to secrecy for the 23 years or so that it took before this was released to the public? Did you have to sign secrets? Didn't tell anybody when you got back what you did?
The messages, you mean?
Yeah, the code talker business.
We had to memorize about 814 words. Not carry a dictionary. We had a dictionary all written out at code school. Navajo instructors. But we couldn't carry it in our combat. It's all up here.
When you got home, when you got back to the reservation, could you tell people what you did? Or was that, no?
That, again, I didn't mention. Before leaving China, they call us in code talkers. So many of them. Not a word about what you did, what your duties were, who your comrades were, what outfit, what country. No. It was a hush-hush. Same way on discharge, same word. So we came back to our reservation that way. I lived with it for many, many years. That's the way it was. The government order, it's an order. When we left the Marine Corps, not to say anything, because they were keeping it secret. I don't know why, but in China we didn't use it. Any more? Yes, sir.
One question. I gotta believe that a tank was a tortoise, right? Am I guessing right on that? The Navajo word for tank was gonna be that word for a tortoise or a turtle,
The code word.
the code word,
Turtle?
turtle, for a tank?
I don't get it.
The Navajo, Navajo code.
You mean tank?
Tank, yeah.
What walks slow?
Tortoise, turtle,
Turtle.
a natural.
We didn't even have nationality throughout the world. In fact, my people, when I was young, they never knew there was an ocean. They're home, self-sufficient. When we got into Los Angeles, all the Navajos, big eyes, oh, coming from a desert. Yeah, it's quite an experience as a Navajo Indian. And many times you hear some other tribe saying we were Kotokas. That's one thing that came out, made everybody wants to be code talker. Back in 200, the year 2000, the state of New Mexico, senator and a representative at the state sponsored a bill in Washington, D.C. And one senator from Milwaukie, they sponsored a bill to have the Navajo Kotos get the Congressional Medal of Honor. And Bill Clinton signed it back in 2001. There's two kinds. One's gold, one's a silver, solid. I got the silver medal in the year 2001 as Navajo Code Talker. But one thing about that Medal of Honor, it's a civilian. I don't know why it's civilian. So we got the Congressional Medal of Honor there.
You get paid extra for that? I mean, a Medal of Honor, don't they get $400 a month for, you get any money out of that on yours?
Wife says no.
Because of the hush-hush, we never got recognized till after 60 years, more recent.